Every person has a story. Some stories are filled with joy, others are marked by loss, struggle, uncertainty, or the feeling that no one could possibly understand. That's why I created Unshaken Voices. Each episode is a reminder that behind every diagnosis, every setback, and every challenge is a real person whose story deserves to be heard. Because when one person finds the courage to share their journey, someone else finds the courage to keep going. If you're looking for honest conversations about mental health, faith, resilience, and hope, I invite you to join us. Watch or listen on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. And if this episode speaks to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. Together, we're proving that no story is ever beyond hope. Welcome back to Unshaken Voices. I'm your host, Denise Pimentel, and today's conversation is one that I believe will speak deeply to students, parents, young adults, and anyone who has ever felt different, misunderstood, or like they just didn't quite fit into the mold. My guest today is Kayden O'Connor. He's a young man who has a powerful testimony of resilience, faith, creativity, and really is just walking in a purpose. So, from experiencing loss and instability at a young age to walking through bouts of bullying and then depression, ADHD, and autism spectrum diagnosis, and then the pressure through it all to try to fit in. Kayden's story reminds us that being different doesn't mean that you're less or that you have to be. In fact, sometimes the very things that make us feel different are the things that are being used to help us find our people, our gifts, and our voice. Kayden is also a very gifted actor. He found belonging through theater, and it started, I believe, in what he said, drama club, and led to earning multiple nominations for his performances. And now he's preparing to start his BFA in theater performance at Hofstra University. He received both an academic and an artistic scholarship. So that is a great thing that he did. Today, we're going to talk about his childhood grief, the experiences he had through bullying, his neurodiversity, his faith, theater, his rejections from college, but especially what it means to be unapologetically yourself. This is a conversation about finding purpose even when the road to get there has not been easy. So Kayden, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with Unshaken Voices. So let me bring him on. Hi Kayden, welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. So for anybody who's meeting you for the first time, how would you describe yourself today?
Well, I would say hi. My name is Kayden. I'm on the energetic side. I like making friends. I like having fun. I'm a theater kid. I play video games, do voice acting, and yeah.
Okay, so that gives us a pretty big picture of who you are now. So I wanted to jump into some of the questions and talk about some of the tough things that you've gone through. So when you look back at your childhood, what are some of the earliest challenges that you remember having to face?
Okay. It started with the absence of a father. He wasn't really around that often.
Okay.
And when he was, my mother tried to keep me away from him because he was not necessarily a good person. And on top of that, I also had to deal with the loss of a sister
Okay.
at the age of 5, which not many people deal with death that early, especially a death of a baby. So I didn't really understand it, but it was
Right.
definitely challenging.
Yes, and that's a lot for a 5-year-old to have to go through. And when you talk about that, I think people listening can understand that, the pain that you go through in your childhood, doesn't always look like something obvious on the outside. So you were probably internalizing some of that pain. Do you think
Yeah,
that's what
definitely.
happened?
Well, because when you're 5, you don't really have the words to express how you feel.
Right.
So, yeah.
100%. Yeah. So your biological dad, right? So you were saying he left and then you experienced the loss of your sister, Lydia, right? What's her name?
Yes.
Okay. How did that end up like shaping you going forward? So not having your dad there, then losing your sister at 5?
Well, it was like a rough start, I guess
Yeah.
you could say.
Yeah.
But nowadays it definitely has made me more emotionally intelligent, I would say.
Okay.
I'm very empathetic, and I understand when people are hurting. Maybe not in the exact same way, but I can definitely relate to loss and pain.
Right. Were you able to like see a therapist or anything, or did you just take this on?
So when I was younger, obviously normal therapy doesn't exactly work because 5-year-olds don't talk about their feelings that
Right.
much.
Right.
So I was taken to like art and like music therapy where I
Oh,
would
nice.
just be let out and I would, draw and touch instruments. There was even like a rage room type
Oh,
of
wow.
place, so I could just like flail around and kick. And the person would like ask me questions and like see how I reacted to that. So it was a way of therapy without having to speak that much
Right.
because I
That's
couldn't.
Yeah, I have definitely heard of those. And when my son was going through things, his dad and I separated when he was 4, maybe. Um I I took him to a therapist and the therapist was like, "Oh, he's fine." And I think it's because of like you're saying, children don't really have the words yet, to express what they're really feeling. And, even when, and you don't even really fully understand them yet at that point in time, like you were going through. So doing things like the therapy you had mentioned is probably very helpful, I would say. Did you ever do the rage room?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right. I know my youngest, I don't know if he does it to release like emotions, but sometimes he will go in the basement, get a box and a hammer and just like break the box. So maybe that's his own form of therapy. So that kind of reminds me of the rage room. Okay, so how did your faith, help you or did it when you were younger? Did your faith help you through those years?
I think so, yes, because in a time of instability, God was a constant. Because I always went to church on Sunday, whether it be like Sunday school, or vacation Bible school, and he would always be there,
Right.
even when everything else was just all over the place. And I feel like that was, very helpful, even if like at times it was hard to understand. He was just
Yeah.
like constant, which
Right.
is nice.
And I agree with that. I was born into faith as well. I mean, as you get older, your faith grows into something different than when you're younger. But when you do start out in, a family that has faith, it's good to have always had God, to believe in and to help you through those moments. But it does change, obviously, into a different level as you get older. So I love that your faith was a part of you getting through everything. And that was even before you had answers to what was going on. You were able to lean on God, and He was there to meet you where you were, even through confusion and pain that you were experiencing. So, your current dad. So when did he come into your life, and how did that change for you?
Well, he came in like when I was around 6, maybe 7. And first time I met him, he he treated me like his own son, so that was really nice. And I got to meet my stepbrother, my older stepbrother, and it was just like a breath of stability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we weren't moving houses that much. We were comfortable.
Okay.
And I was just
Were you like hesitant at first, or you were just happy
I was
to
just
have?
happy to have a dad.
That's good. That's good. And I heard your mom say that you were 5. So
Yeah,
it's
I was
hard to
5.
remember when you're
Yeah.
younger. My son doesn't remember, exactly when things happened, but yeah, it's just harder when you're a kid. So that looks like, or sounds like, may have been a turning point for you to have this new father figure when you really didn't have one,
Yes.
outside of your faith. So it's beautiful when someone is willing to step in and bring stability to not only your mom's life, but to you as her child, especially when things are so like uncertain. So for my husband as well, he came in, he had 2 children of his own. And my son was 5, I guess, 4 or 5. And he was able to just take my son in and love him like his own son. And that seems like, the experience you had with your dad. So, did you always consider him your dad, or do you look at him as your stepdad?
I always consider him as my dad.
Yeah, because as far as you can remember, he was there, and you didn't have a relationship with your biological dad. So, what is it meant to gain your new father figure, siblings, or this bigger family? Or do you not see your other siblings from him? How is that relationship with your dad and your step siblings?
So I mean, I love my dad, obviously.
Yes.
I love him, and
Mm-hmm. Like your dad.
It was interesting to have an older stepbrother.
Okay.
And it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to have a stepbrother. But especially after my brother Oscar was born.
Right.
Like, that was like a real kaboom. Like, I could not believe my eyes.
Yeah.
I was so happy to have a sibling
Yes.
that was there. And
how old were you at that time? Do you remember?
I think 6.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice. So that was
Yeah.
like a culminating, like joined together, like just brought everything together
Yeah.
for you. Right. I can relate to that because my son was crying. Like he was in the hospital crying, looking at Xavier, who's my youngest, through, Ryan, who is not his dad. But he was just in awe and amazed and so overjoyed that he now had a sibling, who he was going to get to live with. He didn't get to live with his step siblings, so he was going to now be able to live with a sibling of his own.
Yeah. My mom told me that, I don't remember that well, but my mom told me that when I first saw Oscar, I like full on climbed on the hospital bed and just like stared right at him on
nice.
top of him, because I was just like, this is real. This is my brother.
Yeah. One thing Sean had said about Xavier, he goes, I have waited for you my whole life. Like, and the nurses I wasn't there because I was in the other room, but he was there with Xavier, and he was just like so overjoyed, like you're saying. So your siblings, do you feel like they are a gift from God? And like, what has your family, now you don't have a small family, right? How many siblings do you have?
5 siblings.
5 siblings. Okay. And so what has having 5 siblings taught you?
Miracles can happen.
Right.
Because after the loss of a sibling, having 4, 5 more just go, hey, we're here. It was really, really cool, awesome, amazing, lovely, and they just kept coming.
Right, they just kept coming.
Yeah, but I see them as a wonderful gift from God, and I couldn't ask for better siblings. They're
right.
Amazing. Most of them are younger than me, obviously, which is interesting. But they're
so you're like a role model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the role model.
That's great. Your mom just did I saw a post about, I guess you're one of the sisters, about how much she's going to miss you when you go to college. I don't know which one was that.
She's the youngest. Her name's Freya.
Okay.
Me and her get along really well.
How old is she?
She's 5. Yes. 5.
Okay.
There's so many of them.
All right. That's okay. That's a blessing, right?
Yeah.
As you get older and you have so many siblings, that is such a blessing. I wish I could have had more kids. It's just complicated when you have a mental illness.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to bring as many siblings into the world like your mom did. So you guys are going to play a big part, I think, in your, whatever your effect is in this world. So that's great. And it's so sweet, like, to see you talk about them. And I just feel that you have so much gratitude in your heart for where your life is today, especially with your siblings. And it's like you belong, to this new life that God gave you. So that's a beautiful thing. So I wanted to move on to talking about your bullying experiences. Now, I'm very familiar with bullying. I had to pull my son, Sean, out of a Christian school, actually, for what he experienced with bullying. So that was rough because my goal was to have both of my kids grow up through a Christian school, and I ended up, pulling him and he went to Catholic school for 2 years, and that was great. And then he went to public school, and he really didn't have any problems whatsoever because they really handle bullying well in his school. Now, let's hear a little bit about you. You were bullied and even physically hurt on the playground. So what was that season of life like for you?
I wouldn't say it necessarily, like the season necessarily ever ended, but it shifted in the way that the bullying was like.
Okay.
Like what kind of bullying it was. When we first moved in with my dad and my stepbrother, that school there was a physical bully that he threatened me and told me to pull my pants down, otherwise he would do something to me, and he choked me on the playground.
Wow.
So yeah, physically, and then we moved to Basking Ridge, where I didn't have any more physical bullies.
Okay.
And elementary school was pretty smooth sailing. There wasn't much bullying that I dealt with there. It was really once I got into middle school and high school where the verbal and word of mouth type of bullying came around. Yeah. Because I'm a little different. I'm unique, and some people don't like that I'm confident in who I am. So
I hear you.
Spread rumors about me and things, which that happens, and I tend not to pay attention to them because why should I?
Right. Exactly. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that, because nobody should have to feel like unsafe for being themselves, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to do through Unshaken Voices is, a lot of people who are unique or perceived as different can have a mental illness attached. And I'm not saying that you do, but I'm just saying that tends to happen. And I'm trying to break that stigma, right? I want to help to make people's differences be accepted throughout, wherever you are. And what you're doing today is more than likely going to help someone else feel more comfortable in their skin, no matter what they have going on. I just think that it's great that you're able to be here and talk about it. And you're also feeling that it's okay to be honest, right? So these experiences happened, but you know what? You said that you're able to ignore them, right? And continue to be yourself, and that will help someone else to get through that. Now, do you have a group of friends that you can be with, or so tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I had my group of friends from elementary school, which I've always been friends with, but some of us, especially in middle school and high school, we're starting to figure out what we actually want to do with our lives.
Right.
So kind of split paths, but we're all still good friends. But I made I guess you could say high school friend group.
Okay.
And it started in drama club.
Right.
In the stage crew, I met my best friend Hayden. And I got introduced to his friend group, and then that group of people liked me for me, and it just stuck. And I have a great friend group now, on top of my elementary school friends.
That's great. So did the bullying affect the way you saw yourself at all? Even though you were able to ignore them, did it deep down like affect you at all?
I'm sure there have been times where it did, but as I've gotten older, I'm just like, these people can think what they want, but
Right.
that's not going to affect. I'm not changing for you.
Right.
I'm not going to change who I am because you don't like that.
Right. Right. And it seems like you had your safe space, you had your group of friends, a place to just be accepted and be you. And then, you know what? Well, we can just ignore the other ones, because sometimes what I've learned is that people will bully you when there's something not great happening with them, and they don't really learn the opposite way. They instead take their pain and put it on someone else. And sadly, I pray for them, with my son and the bullying he experienced. I would tell him, pray for them. God tells us to pray for our enemies.
Yeah.
And it's not for us to deal with them. God will deal with them. So as much as it's a struggle and sad that this is still happening, I'm glad that you were able to get through this and find your safe space through your friends, and I'm sure your family too.
Yeah.
So you use this phrase, you're unapologetically yourself. So what does that mean to you, that I'm unapologetically myself?
Well, yeah, that means I'm not going to change for anyone. I'm not like other people.
Right.
I don't follow the norm because
Mm-hmm.
I find that boring. And I'm not going to change the way I am for
Right.
someone just because they don't like that. And I'm not going to apologize for being the way I am, because it's the way God created me. And
right. I like that.
I was made this way, so
yeah,
deal with it.
It's a very strong phrase, and it's very catchy. Like I like it. I really like it, and that's why I used it in the title when I made the original promo. So to me, it sounds like, I'm not going to ask permission to be who, like other people feel I should be. I'm going to be who God designed me to be. And so what? If you don't like that, whatever. So that is amazing. And it's hard for some people to get to the point you're at. It really takes strength and a bold attitude. So I'm so glad that you are there, and hopefully, your story will help other people to try to get to that point. So what would you say to someone else who's struggling, who may be feeling misunderstood, who may be bullying? What can you say to them today?
I would say that being different isn't bad. Being different is never a bad thing, even though it's always used, not always, but mostly used as like a negative term.
Mm-hmm.
Being different is being unique, and you should follow that. You should be unique. You shouldn't conform to the norm, because believe it or not, God likes to use the weirdos. If you read the Bible at all, you know that he does not use the normal people.
Right.
Like David had a lisp.
Yeah.
So don't conform to normality, and just trust that God knows what he's doing, and let him steer you in the right direction.
Excellent. I love those words. Those are really fighting words. And for people struggling today, fighting to try to be okay with who they are, that is really a good example. And God, yes, God didn't pick the strongest all the time. He picked some of the weaker, struggling people and turned them into strength. So I 100% agree with that. So now I wanted to move a little bit into talking about ADHD, autism, and understanding yourself and who you are. So during COVID, you had mentioned you struggled with depression and focusing, which led to your ADHD and autism diagnosis. So what was it like to finally have these answers for your struggling?
It was like in the cartoons when there's a light bulb above someone's head. That was what happened right there when I was diagnosed. Because, oh wait, I'm not crazy. This has there's words. There's an actual reason for this. I'm not
Right.
just like, this isn't just something that, yeah, this is real. This is something that exists.
Right.
And yeah, it was really refreshing to know that I'm not crazy.
That's good. Usually there's a reason behind things. Yeah. So that makes so much sense. Sometimes a diagnosis, doesn't change who you are, but it helps to finally explain what was going on and make sense. Now, for me, my diagnosis kind of attached shame to me because bipolar is a little different, and the crazy is definitely like, oh, she's crazy. Like I hid it from people because honestly, without treatment, I do get crazy and start hallucinating, and it's pretty severe. So I understand the feeling of crazy, but again, here I am today because I followed through on all my treatments, and it does make sense. Like, oh, that's why I was crazy, So I do understand that in a huge way. So I'm glad that they were able to figure it out. Sometimes people don't figure these things out until they're adults. How long did that process take, do you think?
Well, I mean, it technically took until I was 16.
So you were having issues all along?
They weren't really noticeable until
COVID. Right? Yeah, magnified.
And I think it was mainly because I'm more of a creative thinker. So in elementary school, there's a lot more like colors and playtime and recess, and then middle school is a lot different, and then COVID hit, and it was just a lot of
right.
blandness.
So what grade were you in when COVID hit? Do you remember?
I was at the end of 6th grade, and then I was virtual for all of 7th grade.
Okay, yeah. That virtual,
that was
craziness. Yes, that was a rough time, and I was a teacher at that time too, so it was definitely complicated. Well, actually, I stopped teaching and started teaching my son, who was 4 at the time, because I had the teaching degree. So doing an hour a day of virtual school to me didn't make sense. So I just took on the role of teaching him instead of going and teaching other students. So that was a unique time. So did you getting diagnosed? Well, you did say it kind of affected you understanding yourself. So yes, that brought the light that, oh, duh, now I get it. Now I know why I am the way I am. But what do you wish people, like more people, understood about autism and even ADHD, learning differently? What do you wish you could get out there and help them understand?
Yeah, I wish more people, especially with the internet nowadays, a lot of people have fake understandings of
Okay.
what certain mental disabilities are like, because oh,
AI.
I'm gonna make this a TikTok and over exaggerate everything. Um, so people need to understand what these mental disabilities are, and like
Right.
what they actually are, and also that it shouldn't be as hard as it is to get accommodations in high school, even for having ADHD and autism, because one thing about me and probably a bunch of other people too is that it's hard to ask for help, and
Right.
when you finally do, and then you have 5,000 different forms to do,
Right.
and then you have other people deciding if you really are neurodivergent and if you actually need accommodations, and then they make the accommodations without really understanding what the mental disability is. And in my case, a lot of my accommodations, quote unquote, required me to ask every single time, which I already have a hard time doing, especially when I'm spiraling,
Right.
because I'm stressed about, getting the work done, and I forgot about it. I don't have time. I'm all over the place, and I have to
Right.
ask every single time.
Mm-hmm. No, I get that. And I think every district handles things differently. Some may be better than others. Yeah. I feel like our district does a pretty. I work for Bridgewater Raritan district. I think they do a really good job of handling things. It does get complicated at times, I'm sure, on both ends. So I can understand that as well, having seen things take place from a parent perspective and then things take place from the teacher perspective. So I see both ends. But yeah, I think every district has their own challenges when trying to handle these situations. So I'm sorry that you had to go through such a tough time with trying to get those accommodations. That's complicated, especially like you said, when it's hard to finally come out and ask for help, and you finally do, and then having a hard time getting those. I'm sure that's tough. So how has your faith helped you? Has that played a part at all in seeing your differences as part of how God made you?
Yes. My church did like a sermon series like 2 months ago about disabilities in the Bible and things, and that especially really helped me feel like this was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything. Obviously, I still like knew that God gave these to me to work in different ways, yet still wonderful ways. And yeah, I'm thankful that I have these, because I see things differently, and it's helpful sometimes, especially with like a creative mind like myself. I'm very passionate about what I do, and when I have an idea, I definitely jump on it immediately, and I'm very thankful that I have that ability, and it's because of my neurodivergency.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that, our faith doesn't actually erase our differences, but it actually helps us to see purpose in them, because your faith can help others, right? Through your neurodivergence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's hugely important, which kind of leads us into your theater experiences and the purpose and the God-given gifts that you were born with. So can we talk a little bit about when did you first realize that acting was something that was special for you?
So my mother is a very, very theater person, and even owned a theater company with her best friend,
Oh wow.
um, which it still exists today. She doesn't run it anymore because we live so far away, but it does
Mhm.
exist still. And I was born into a life of music and theater and all that. And at 3, I was Sandy the dog and Annie. So
Aw,
I was
3.
yeah, 3. I was already like given the chance and experience of being on stage, and I just loved it. It was it's such a
It
great
was
creative output, and I just like fell in love
it was
as soon as I
natural.
started. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really natural.
Wow. Well, that I love hearing about that because, you know, I was always fearful. Getting on the stage in front of people. You sound so much like my son because he started singing and going on the stage when he was, I think 5 was probably the first time, but just always had that ability to go in front of people and not be nervous. Now, my youngest would never. Like, he doesn't even want to be in pictures. Like, no, I don't want. When we used to sing happy birthday to him, he would run out of the room. But, God gave you this and you're using this talent just beautifully and performing, and it becomes this place where you can become alive, right? so
Yeah,
so what does theater give you that maybe you don't find anywhere else?
it definitely gives me an escape from the real world. Um,
Okay.
which obviously you can't run from it forever, but it's nice to have moments of comfort and like peace. And it's just so fun and amazing that I can go into this theater, perform, tell a story. No matter what part I'm important in some way, and impacting in a way that I might not necessarily know would have impacted someone, but
Right.
the thought is there. I'm always like, what keeps me going is, obviously it's all for God, but I always like to think that as long as I stir something in someone's heart in the audience, I've done my job.
That's amazing.
So
That is, I mean, and
yeah.
I'm sure you do, not just your mom, but every or your dad, but the other people there, just hearing the voices and the singing and the acting. People live for that. They love going to shows and watching the art. I mean, it really is performing arts, right?
Yeah,
And people love to watch it. And it sounds like theater gives you this expression and belonging and like freedom all at once. So, and you can just escape, right?
yeah,
So that's awesome. And God gave you this ability to act that not everyone can do, right? That takes work and practice and memorization. It's not easy.
no, it is
Um,
not.
and it's challenging even for people like you who love it. So, how did you said you had played 5 characters, right?
Yeah, I've
How
done it
did
in 2 shows. Yeah,
Right, so how did that stretch you? Was it too much or
it definitely was. I wasn't used to it. That's for
okay,
sure. Um, but I think, especially in the case of Radium Girls, that is a very dramatic and heavy show because it's a real story. It happened here in New Jersey. Um, but playing all these different characters, I feel like it was God saying, "Hey, get used to this,
right.
because this is the amount of like work you'll have to do for
Right.
any show you're in, regardless of like how many roles you actually have,
Right.
having 5 roles it's an important skill to learn how to play multiple different characters.
Yes, I'm sure.
Especially when they're like so different, and like
Yeah.
some of them even like are like opposing sides and things. Getting used to completely changing for each character is
Right.
really helpful, because like if you watch any Broadway show, the ensembles are usually tiny because it's the same group of people
Yes.
doing all these ensemble roles. It's not
Wow.
like, I mean, at Ridge we still have like a lot of people doing a lot of things. Obviously,
Mhm.
I've done 5 roles twice now.
Right.
But because it's high school, they want to have more people, so
Yes.
there are more people in the ensemble. But usually on Broadway, some of like my favorite shows, they use the same small group of people for a bunch of different roles, and I feel like God was going, "Hey, you're gonna need to learn how to do this, so why not learn it now?"
Nice. Yes. So even though it was challenging, it's kind of still part of the gift that God gave you, not something separate, but it's a huge amount of responsibility. But like you said, it was training, right? Like
Yeah.
God trains us for certain experiences to prepare us for the future. So it seems like even though it was challenging, you were able to use it as a learning experience,
Yeah.
which is great. And I'm excited for you at Hofstra for what you're going to be doing there. Now, in terms of awards, so what was it like to be nominated for the Montclair Foxy Award for Best Actor?
It was a shock in a good
Okay.
way.
Okay.
I had gone to the Foxy Awards to like watch my fellow peers the 2 years before, because this was junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really like register that I could be nominated for an award.
Okay. So you weren't even expecting it.
So when it happened, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. Like I wasn't like flipping out and was like, oh my god,
Right. Yeah.
but like I was still happy about it. Obviously, I was just ecstatic, but I didn't like let it consume me.
Right.
I was still like, I got nominated. That's pretty cool.
Right. So you were able to stay grounded.
Yeah, and like, you know, even after I didn't win, but
Right.
I didn't like care that much. I think
Right.
the spectacle was getting nominated in general.
Yeah.
Rather than winning. I mean, winning would have been nice, obviously, but that's not the point.
Yes. Right. Yeah, it's the nomination.
It's the nomination, and the fact that people thought, like, actual theater people thought I was good enough to be nominated, and I'm so thankful to God that, you know, He gave me not only the chance to be nominated, but the chance to do theater and live this life that I'm living.
Yes. That sounds so very validating that, you know, some people I think get overly excited for certain things, and then if the win doesn't come, it like really brings them down. So I think your reaction is probably the best way to go. You know, hope for the best, you know, but don't get your expectations up too high. And so I think that's great that you handled it exactly the way you should have. And some people don't. And sadly, they end up in a not great place. So your experience will help others as well through this. And then you had said you were also mentioned that you were nominated again for Cinderella and Peter Pan and Wendy. Is that right? Okay,
Yeah,
so what was that? Tell us a little bit.
Well, the double nomination was cool.
Yeah.
Like that's 3 now.
Right.
And again, I didn't let it consume me, because if I did that, then I'm going to be extremely disappointed when I,
Right.
if I didn't, which I didn't, but
Right.
the spectacle is being nominated. But it was nice knowing that these like risks and like things that I decided I was gonna do actually paid off.
Right.
Like, there were aspects of my characters that I wasn't necessarily told to do,
Okay.
but I had just like decided I was gonna do, and
Okay.
it wasn't like in a way that was like, oh, I'm not gonna do what the director said because I don't want
Right.
to.
Right.
It was something that like I could just do because he didn't direct me on that,
Right.
and I'm glad I took those risks
Okay.
because that led me to nominations and
Yeah.
things, and I'm sure God was like, hey, do this.
Right. He was whispering in your ear, kind of working at your uniqueness, not just in your personality, but your acting.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. You also mentioned that you pray before rehearsals and performances. So what does that prayer usually sound like?
Well, I'm usually backstage in the wings, because
Okay.
it's darker backstage, and there's usually like chatter, especially for performances. There's like chatter, but it's not
Right.
loud chatter, and I go, dear Lord, please protect me and my fellow cast and crew, director, protect everyone. Let's make sure we have a great performance, that everyone is healthy, safe, and that you use mine and everyone else's abilities to convey a story that people want to see,
Mm-hmm.
and let's have a great show.
Right. That sounds right. And your mom would come in and ask for the same prayers in Bible study, to keep everyone healthy. I can only imagine when someone's unwell and can't perform, how that can bring a whole level of stress. I mean, you always have backups, right? Don't you have people? Or no?
It's not really.
No? Oh, no. What do you
but
do in that case?
Thankfully, it hasn't really happened. So,
Oh, thank God.
I always get sick the week before. That's it. My body's
Probably
just like,
the stress.
It's this week. We're gonna get sick this week, so you're
It's the stress because you're overwhelmed, all the practicing. That's probably what kind of moves you in, but better the week before than the week of. So, all right. So how do you end up balancing the working hard with all the performances, and then, giving God credit for things? Like, how do you balance it all without taking, some people tend to struggle with, this is me, and not God helping.
Well, I mean, I always like praise him and thank him after a good performance, after a bad performance even, for just being there and giving me the gift that I have, but also not accepting like my last performance that I did as the best I could do.
Okay.
Like, God will find a way to make it even better the next time. And whatever that means, he will make sure there's more. It's not there. It doesn't just stop because it doesn't stop. And
okay, I could relate to that because, with everything, with my book and the podcast and having a stroke and surviving that, and the great things that are happening because of my hard work that I'm putting in, I always tell myself, well, this isn't me. This is God finding these doors and opening them for me to walk through. So I feel like his plan for your life, especially with where to decide where to go to college, he plays a big part in those directions. So why don't we move into the area of college and rejection and moving forward in your life now that you've put high school behind you? I remember your mom talking about, the audition process for applying to different colleges and how it was a lot of work, exhausting. What would you say is the hardest part, especially for people who are planning to major in theater?
The hardest part for me was probably the more academic side of things.
Okay.
Just because I already have a hard time focusing when it comes to academics because I'm not that interested in those things. But that definitely took the longest, especially the
Right.
essays and things.
And with ADHD and autism, that makes it even harder.
It makes it harder. But I let God do his thing, and I let him lead me through the applications, the essays, the auditions, the pre-screens, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found where I want to go. So
okay, good. So that can be draining,
Yeah.
not only for regular students, but you had even more on top of that because you had to overcome the academics and then had to overcome all the auditions.
Yeah.
So it was like a double whammy for
Yes.
you as a theater major, like heading into that field. So I'm glad you're through it.
Yeah.
And you're now, going to just handle that aspect of things. What about rejection? Did you get rejected to any?
I
So how
definitely
did that go?
Well, I stayed humble a lot with the schools. Like I didn't need to go to this place. Like
Right.
Hofstra wasn't even on my list until the very end.
Right.
But I didn't decide I need to go to a school because if I did that, then I would be really upset if I got rejected.
Right.
And I just kind of let God do the control and
the doors. He was opening the doors.
I can't control what the decisions are. I can't control if I get rejected or accepted. That's all up to him. So I didn't have to I don't know. I wasn't getting overwhelmed by oh no I didn't get I got rejected from a school.
Right.
It just happened and I was like, okay, well, I guess that's not the one. You know where it is, so
yeah,
you tell me where that is.
Right. Yeah, he opens and closes doors for a reason. I've been there through my life. I didn't get it. See, I did what you didn't do, and I put my heart on certain colleges and then got rejected. And I was like, but my brother made it in. Why didn't I? It's rough when you do that. So yeah, kind of staying middle ground, allowing God to open the doors because there's reasons some other doors may have closed. Like if I got into the school I had originally wanted to get into, I probably would have failed out because they were very strict and I was not the best student. I mean, I was average, but their expectations were really high and probably wouldn't have been a good fit. So I think God plays a part in that process. What helped you to feel that Hofstra was the way to go? Like, how did you make your final decision there?
It was really between two schools. I got accepted into another one, but I just it didn't feel right.
Okay.
But it was between these two schools. It was Hofstra and Centenary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was having a hard time deciding, but I think God just led me to Hofstra because I am a social person. I love making friends, hanging out, going places, and there is a lot to do both
Okay.
at Hofstra and
Mhm.
around Hofstra,
Okay.
especially on like Long Island and everything.
Right.
Whereas Centenary is like in the middle of nowhere.
Or rural.
There's nothing around
Yeah.
there, and I felt kind of trapped there
Okay.
almost when I like toured. Not to say it was a bad college. I'm not saying that, but
Just the feel,
it
the
just
vibe.
felt more like, you know, I couldn't go anywhere.
Right. So you fit better.
I fit better at Hofstra, and
Okay.
I just like the community better. They were more, I feel like they were more welcoming, and they really like made me feel like I belonged there, not just another student coming into the college that they need.
Right. Right.
They felt me, it made me feel like I was just, you know, a person joining a neighborhood, you know?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish you the best with that. I'm sure you're going to do great. I'm excited to see. I'm sure I will watch all the posts that your mom puts out about your performances there. It's going to be exciting. And you received both an academic and artistic scholarship there. So how did that make you feel? Probably amazing.
Well, yeah, it was. I was very happy with the artistic, but the academic was the real shocker.
Okay.
Because I am not the most sharp when it comes to academics.
Right.
I don't really, yeah, I didn't have like the best grades or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But after, you know, thinking about it, I think it was not as much about the grades that got me that academic scholarship, but more my essays.
Okay.
Because I wrote about deep topics, you know, like rumors and bullying and things. So I think God like was like, yo, you should write about this because this, believe it or not, will get you an academic scholarship. And you'll get an artistic scholarship too. That's true. But you're gonna get an academic scholarship because you're gonna write this good essay, not because you have good grades, but because you wrote a good essay.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
I love how you portray God's voice to you. Yo, like I never really hear that, but I think it's so funny, but good, because you're bringing to light your relationship with God and how it's at this deeper level of, you know, than other people have sometimes. And that's who God is, right? He meets us where we are, and his voice to you is how you feel he is. Like it's very funny, but it's very true, you know? And I appreciate you sharing that, because God isn't always, you know, going to just be this, you know what I mean? You know, and some people lose sight that God is, yes, he's our Father, but he's also our friend. So that's a great part of hearing you talk. So talking about, you know, you're going off, getting your BFA in theater performance, what are you most excited about? Like, what do you want to accomplish while you're there?
I'm really excited to actually focus on theater more than like I still have to do some academic stuff.
Yes.
But like
it's
mainly focused on theater and what I actually want to do in life, what I want to pursue, what God gave me the gift to do. And I want to be able to explore that further in college and let him show me how I can be even better at, you know, what I do.
Right. Yeah, that's exciting. So it sounds like this next chapter isn't just about school. It's more like stepping into fully who you, Kayden O'Connor, are intended to become. Right? So that's exciting. And I'm glad that you'll be able to focus on theater and not necessarily like in high school where you have to focus on the other things. So in terms of your faith now, as a recently graduated high schooler, looking back, where do you see God's hand played a part, like very clearly in your story up until now?
Well, I mean, I feel like he's always been there, but mainly when, after all like the loss and stuff early in my life, I feel like he was really there to comfort me through that and to find me a family that loves me for me, and a father who loves me as I am,
Right.
and siblings. I feel like that time especially. I when I was after my sister died, we always picture Lydia as a butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
When we see butterflies, we always think of Lydia, and that's just what we associate with her.
Right.
But there was this one time where I think I was in the backyard of my grandma's house, and I was in one of the kiddie pools, just splashing around like crazy, and this huge butterfly comes and lands on my knee while I'm being crazy child.
Right.
And just sits there for like 10 to 15 minutes. I had a full-on conversation with the butterfly as Lydia.
Right.
And I think like things like that were like real God moments, God's hand.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. That definitely seems like a strong presence of God in your life. And, so how do you hope that your story can encourage other teens or young adults that are struggling? And what do you hope that they remember after hearing your story?
That it's okay to be different. Being different isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Being weird isn't bad. It's the best thing.
Right.
Honestly, because being not following the norm will always just be better, because you'll have more to talk about. Honestly, you'll have more experiences that are unlike everyone else, because if you follow the norm, everyone's the same, and the norm is the same, and the norm is normal, and being normal is boring.
There's a lot of normal, so when you're unique, you'll stand out. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. There's a verse that I like to read. It's from Romans. It's the second one. Don't copy behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect.
Right. Normal doesn't always mean what you have to be. Unique, God made us each unique. You're unique, I'm unique. But like you're saying, a lot of people aspire to be normal. They want to fit in, when there's nothing wrong with not fitting in and being yourself and being unique. It makes you stand out. Some people don't like that, as you say, weird. Yeah. It's not always weird, Go ahead.
Well, weird isn't a bad term.
Right.
It's used often as a negative term, but it's not. If you look at the definition of weird, it's not negative. But yeah, being yourself, being weird, being different, you need to do that. You need to outwardly show that, because if you don't, then you will never find your people.
Right.
And you need to find your group, your people, the people that like you for you, because otherwise, it's going to be rough. And
someone out there will like you for you, right? Yes. We don't have to change and make yourself not who you are to make people who don't really like you, right?
Yeah.
So God created us all differently. And I'm glad that you found your uniqueness and that you found your safe space of people. There's always going to be people who judge and say things and make you feel not as good as you should. And it's best not to listen to them and just to move past that. So, all right. Well, thank you for being here. And I'm excited to get this out to people. And I hope that you have a great experience with everything at Hofstra. And is there anything else that you wanted to say before we go?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Well, thanks again for being here. And I look forward to seeing you on the stage at Hofstra. All right. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your summer before the fun stuff begins.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.